Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
We were just talking about wallets. Here. Well, it's very important. Chris Hero is here with me. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it absolutely has. But I think I guess wallets is a good place to start because you deal with a lot of cash at these shows that you go to. You sell a lot of merch.
A
lot of cash.
A lot of it. Ones, fives, 10s, sometimes 20s.
Are you a fanny pack guy or no?
No, not at all.
I got so disappointed because I had my mom find my WWF Championship belt fanny pack from when I was like 7, and she found it because she doesn't throw anything out. Mm-hmm. But she's not a hoarder because she can find it.
Yeah.
So she found it, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to wear this to all the shows. I'm going to be so... It was made for a child. It doesn't fit me anymore. Yeah.
You got you could fit it like over your arm.
That's what I was trying to... I was like, if I wear it over my shoulder, no.
Like Sami Zayn for years had this Sony Walkman fanny pack that's like neon pink and neon green, and just shamelessly would wear. And he's not like wearing it like, oh, it'll be really cool if I wear this retro fanny pack. He's like, oh, it's just practical. I keep my stuff in it.
That's it.
Yeah.
He just never thought to buy one in a different color.
I'm just not a fanny pack person. Right. I used to have one when I was little.
Sure.
I was like in 4th grade. I think I can be excused from that.
They were cool then.
Yeah. But then when they started making a comeback, the only time I've ever actively worn a fanny pack as an adult was when I was living in Mexico for a while. Mm-hmm. And that was just so that I could have everything here in case shit went down. I don't know what kind of shit would go down. I would just have it on my person.
Yeah. You're accountable for everything.
Stuff falling out of a backpack, you don't want that.
No. How long did you live in Mexico for?
I was there on and off for about a total of 3 months. It was kind of a debacle. I went down... Claudio and I went down as a team, and we did some shows, and it was really cool. We got to see a show at Arena Mexico, and then we were approached by the CMLL office, and they're like, "Hey, we'd love to have you guys back. Well, here's a set of dates, or not set of dates, a guarantee you're going to make this much a week, this many shows a week, etc." It sounded awesome, and that's what we wanted to, that's what we wanted to do.
Sure,
wrestle in Arena Mexico. So we come back. We go to the CMLL office, and I think they forgot we were supposed to come because then it was we went to the office 5, maybe 6 days in a row.
Yeah.
And then we're blown off each time. Oh, no, come back tomorrow. Oh, because all the wrestlers show up to the office, and then you get your bookings for the day or for the week.
Yeah.
Because basically, if you're under CMLL contract, they'll send you here. Go, you're going to go to... I can't really think of it. Like, you're going to go to Monterrey.
Right.
Okay,
sure.
You guys, you're going to hop on this bus. You're going to go to Tijuana. You're going to... So we would just be sitting there very patiently in the office, waiting and waiting.
But if you and Claudio are teaming, you're both pretty established by the time you guys were teaming.
No,
or is this
almost.
early?
This was 2006.
Okay.
So we had... for indies at the time, we'd kind of been established. But it just... it didn't matter. We were outsiders. And we just, it didn't work out. It was very frustrating. And, we made a lot of good contacts. We did a lot of great training, because we both spent about 3 years training Lucha Libre with Jorge Rivera. Skyda is his name. He was Ultimo Dragon's trainer from his school, from the Ultimo Dragon school. Just an incredible luchador. So I picked up 3 years of legitimate, authentic Lucha Libre and has helped me so much in my career.
Is that kind of like, is being a wrestler just there's always another place where you're going to have to be humble?
Oh, absolutely.
Does that just go throughout your career?
Yeah.
Like, just because here you're a star,
sure.
If you want to go over here, you're back to square one.
Your dues don't cross over.
They don't.
It doesn't matter.
And it's even
but here's the thing. If you go in there with that attitude...
Yeah.
All it takes is for someone, especially if you come in with a humble attitude and like, okay, cool, whatever, and then somebody finds out what you have done, you're made. And they're just, this guy's... So it's better to have... just in general in wrestling, I never expect anyone ever to know me, ever. Because then I'm never disappointed.
Right.
Never disappointed. So then it's always a pleasant surprise when somebody's like, hey, are you that? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, Nickelback? And I'm like, no, God damn it.
I wish I hadn't said yes that quickly.
Yeah. No, but it's always a pleasant surprise in baggage claim, or you're at a concert or something and somebody kind of recognizes you. Because when you're in around wrestling, it's just going to happen.
Sure.
If I'm in years ago, before I was in WWE, when I would go to like a WrestleMania, it's just like,
as a fan,
you're just like, yeah, you'd go to the show, or because we would have some Ring of Honor shows, and then you're like, hey, let's go to the Hall of Fame, let's do this, whatever. And then just the people, I'd see Kings of Wrestling shirts and whatever, and just be like, the reach of this is pretty significant. It's much bigger, because we're used to doing shows in front of a couple hundred people here or there, but then when you look at the magnitude of it on a grander scale, it's pretty...
That it's striking out. And I think a lot of the NXT guys are getting that now because they're used to wrestling in Florida, and they leave Florida for a second, they realize.
Sure, because I don't want to say Florida's jaded, but they're just overexposed down there.
Right.
So everybody knows them and whatever, and then you have a house show here and it's great, but you're going to Chicago, that might be their only chance to really see you. If the show's going to go well, but scheduling, who knows? Maybe they'll be back in 6 months. Maybe they'll be back in a year.
Right.
So that's why WWE does so well in all these markets, because they come to town twice a year.
Right.
So everybody's like, oh, it's their local WrestleMania.
And indie groups have to figure out how to make it special, because they can't go across the country, because then you're taking a brand that's only been established in one town and trying to make it this national thing, which doesn't really exist.
And it's a delicate mixture. I've never run a show. I've never booked on a regular schedule, but it's maintaining your talent and trying to make them stars based off of people that are already stars.
Right.
So then you also can't spoil the fans with bringing in so many different people all the time, so that when one show's kind of light, the fans are just like, I don't really care. They only have one fly in this show. So it's a tricky thing.
So even though you go in like expecting nobody to know who you are, what do you see your role as now? Are you one of these names that's brought in to bring up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a guy. I've been wrestling over 17 years.
Wow.
Ever since that happened, and I just started thinking like, Jesus, that's a long ass time.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
Well, just as we were talking, like I was thinking about like where did I first learn about you, and then like how long, and it has been
September 12th, 1998 was my first pro wrestling match, and I actually recently, last week, drove to the Heartland Flea Market where I had my first match.
Is it still there?
It's a parking lot. Oh, I was so disappointed. I was like, because I was in Dayton. I also took pictures of Hare Arena, which is where I would watch WWF as a kid.
Right.
My first ever wrestling show, I went there in probably May or June of '89. And then Heatwave 98 was there, 99. The first ever Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair singles match was in Hare Arena. It was a TV taping there. So just a lot of history to kind of go back there. And it's in a state of disrepair now. They still have events. They have like monster truck stuff there.
But it's the same building. It's
the same building. It's the same building. It was very nostalgic checking that out. My mom used to take me there.
When you were a little kid growing up watching wrestling, did you watch everything, or were you a WWF kid?
I watched everything I could.
Yeah.
My parents had a satellite dish, so occasionally I would get some World Class, or I'd get some IWCCW, which is, the Jersey-ish, Tony Rumble, I think. So I would try to watch as much as possible.
Yeah, because I remember because you bringing up Ric Flair and Hogan wrestling, like I was such a WWF kid.
Yeah.
That I didn't know who Ric Flair was.
Oh, really?
When he showed up, I didn't know why we would want to see a Ric Flair Hogan match. I'm like, who is this real world champion, and what's that fake belt he's got? Not realizing it was like the most decorated.
Very cool. So I started getting PWI magazines.
Yes.
And then that's when I would read up about everybody and like, all these people and all these pictures. And then I would go to flea markets and I would get older magazines from the early 80s and such, and just find out about all these people. And like, Rick Martel had short hair,
Yeah.
Why does Kurt Hennig have facial hair? Like, all these different things that happen. And then I kind of filled in the blanks there. So I watched wrestling religiously from like 89 to almost 94, and then I took like a 2.5 year.
You took a break.
Yeah, I took a break.
Why'd you take a break?
I got into high school and it just didn't interest me as much anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, I
guess 94 is probably, if you're gonna take a break, that's the time to take a break.
You're gonna King Mabel.
Yeah.
He's the one that always gets the shit, unfortunately. But that era of stuff, I don't know. Because I got into high school and I played football and everything was time consuming, and I just lost interest. Every now and again, I would look at a magazine or I'd look in the toy aisle and see some stuff, but I just kind of fell out of it. And then it wasn't until my senior year in 97, 98 that Nitro blew up.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, they're doing this thing with Hall and Nash and whatever, and these people are here. So then it kind of caught my eye again, and I used to watch the shows, and they had all these Japanese guys on, and then slowly I got back into WWF, and then that's when the internet became more widespread.
Right.
So then I could just, I wonder what happened to this guy. Oh, cool.
And you learn everything you missed.
Yeah. Or you learn all the original wives' tales of pro wrestling.
Sure.
The Ultimate Warrior died and was replaced by Kerry Von Erich. That kind of stuff, but it was on the internet, so you're like, oh, what's going on here? And then a friend of a friend, I played volleyball at the end of my senior year, and a friend on the team was like, hey, you want to go watch Halsey? He's got a wrestling match. Well, I was like, what? How is this possible?
Yeah.
So it was a guy that was a couple years older than me, had gone to my high school, had a match, and I was, okay, I got to go. So I went to the show, and it was at the Irvin J. Nutter Center, which is where the first King of the Ring was, the first pay-per-view King of the Ring. And I think that's where they go back and have tapings and stuff there. So I went in, I was trying to get tickets, and they're like, oh no, sweetie, it's over there. So I turn around, and in the parking lot, there's a wrestling ring,
right,
a guardrail, and then like 100 people.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Okay. And it's like your mind blown because there's this whole other world of wrestling.
I was going to go into the arena.
Right.
So I got, and then it just basically took away all the intimidation that I had, because as a kid, I want to be a pro wrestler. Yeah, whatever. I also wanted to be G.I. Joe.
Right.
So
you're like, I could do this in front of 100 people in a parking lot.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, where do I go? How do I become one of these people? You had the Atomic Rhino, you had Buzzsaw, you had Mr. Saturday Night, you had all these different guys, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm one of them now too.
Is that when you start thinking of names right away?
It took me a little while. Do you know what my first wrestling name was?
No, I don't.
I was the wife beater. I love that that's such a genuine reaction.
It's so evil.
Named after the tank top.
Well, of course.
Sure, but it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, like, hey, I'm this 18-year-old kid, but I wear a wife beater. Because me and my buddies would wear wife beaters, and we'd go to basketball games and stuff, whatever. And I had some like really tattered ones. I'm like, okay, and I'm going to be wife beater. So people see the name on a piece of paper and go, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I come out and I'm
You're just a guy in a wife beater.
Coming out to smack my bitch up by Prodigy.
No, I like the song and this is my favorite shirt. What's everybody's problem?
Yeah, what's going on? I don't shave yet, So that basically that happened.
Yeah, you're way too young. Like, who? He's 18. He doesn't have a wife.
Yeah, I just beat other people's wives.
Yeah. No, I didn't say I beat my own wife. I'm a guy who beats wives.
Yeah, I'm like I'm like a liaison. Somebody comes to me, having trouble with his wife. Just call up this 18-year-old kid.
It's like the big boss man's a cop. The Mountie's a Mountie. I'm a guy who beats wives.
Yeah, for sure. And a funny thing about that is I used that name because I didn't have a better name at the time, and whatever. I thought it was kind of catchy, and people would remember it. Even if they hated it, they would remember it. So I got booked to do this show in Wisconsin in May of 1999. They put up some posters, and some women's groups were like, wife beater?
Yeah.
What are they glorifying here? So they like picketed the show before before
That's
the show even
amazing
happened.
for you.
So that actually became a news story, and the AP picked it up and like put it around.
Did you wrestle in CZW as the wife beater?
See, that's a separate.
That's what I was getting. Because that's the only wife beater I know of.
There were two wife beaters at the same time.
That's because that's when I started tape trading. Like that's when the whole world opened up to me.
The wife beater Matt Martini from New Jersey.
So did you get mad because somebody was stealing your wife beater gimmick?
I mean, at the time I looked it up to make sure that I was wife beater first, and then when I figured that out, I was like, okay, whatever.
Right.
And I was also wife beater with two words. His was one beater. Exactly.
Right.
WB.
Gotcha.
So they picketed this, and then there used to be the show called Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher.
Right.
And they brought it up on the show.
But you were the one, because I remember the news story, and I remember the CZW wife beater.
Well, it was
But you were the one who got the bad press.
Yes, I'm the one with the bad press.
Good for you.
They never said my real name because I guess nobody ever knew my real name.
Right.
But there was an episode with Tom Green, and they were talking about like, well, Bret the Hitman Hart's not an actual hitman,
right?
And, Jake the Snake isn't a snake. So what's wrong with the wife beater? Like, it was a funny little thing. And I'm like 19 at the time, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
But then
do you start to like key in like, I don't know if I want to get like world famous as the wife beater?
No, it didn't. That didn't dawn on me. But I got an opportunity to work for an NWA company, and he was just like, "No, dude, you got to come up with a new name. I like your stuff in the ring. I'll give you some shows, but we got to come up with something different." So on the way to the show, I came up with Chris Hero.
You were like, "What's the opposite of a wife beater? A hero.
Yeah,
I could be a hero.
I'm the domestic counselor, Chris Hero."
But isn't that like? But isn't that like the classic story of like this name that now, I mean, you dropped it for a little bit when you were in WWE, but you came right back to it. Like, that's the name. That's the 17-year-long name.
Yeah.
And you just kind of thought of it in a car.
For sure. And it's like, it's so simple. It's so stupid, Chris Hero. It's like a first name and then what I do, like
and
John
what's your real
Plummer.
first name?
Yeah.
It's Chris.
It's Chris.
Chris
yeah.
and
I'm
Hero.
Chris. Yeah, Hero. I just thought it was an accurate portrayal of myself as an individual.
Right. And when did you, because this is what I was thinking about with you, like, I'm trying to figure out a good logo for a t-shirt. And like you, the Chris Hero logo, you've been able to figure out. I think I had like a Ring of Honor era black gold foil Chris Hero t-shirt. I think that's the one.
Yes. That's awesome. I think it probably says Chris is awesome on the back.
I think
of it.
so. Clap, clap. Yeah. When did you come up with the Chris Hero logo, or who did? Did you commission someone for that?
So actually, my good friend Andy Nick, he's a web designer in Dayton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. Greatly successful now. He and I were buddies in high school. He was on my volleyball team. Mm-hmm. He actually attended the wrestling match with me. Mm-hmm. And then later, when I came up with Chris Hero, I don't know how I mean, not that it's very creative, but I don't know when the thought entered into my mind, and I was like, oh, kind of like the S dips. It can be like a C, like, okay. So then I explained it to my buddy Andy. Yeah. And then he just, with his, like, he had a picture, like a really small picture of a Superman thing, and he made it with his hand on his computer. Just clicked it all together, and that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah. At his parents' house in Englewood, Ohio. he just sketched it up, and I'm very fortunate to know a lot of graphically talented people and just artistically talented people, because I'm not artistically inclined. I'm an idea person. Right. I can say, all right, I want this and whatever, blah, blah. But as far as doing it myself, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good. But like, for instance, one of the famous ones is Dave Bogart. He does all the pro wrestling tee stuff. I'm like, Dave, I got this idea, and I'll tell him the idea, and then he'll bring it to life.
And isn't it amazing when you find artistic people like Dave is, who like you can just message him, and he'll be like, okay, got it, and like he'll just disappear for a day and come back, and he's got this amazing stuff.
Oh man, my latest one is I've got a shirt coming out for Death by Elbow, which is my team with JT Dunn. That's just emojis. It's just 3 emojis, right? So I told Dave about it, and you can't find emoji in high res, so you have to recreate it. So he's like, here you go, but you have no idea how hard this actually was. I had to like hand draw these emojis, and they look perfect.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you got the one, and then how later on was it? Because I know now, do you realize, well, I love Wu-Tang, so why don't I just do a whole bunch of stuff and a whole bunch of chants just dedicated to Wu-Tang?
That was a guy reached out to me, a Chicago designer named Jim Lee, and he was just like, hey man, I had this idea. What do you think? And I'm like, of course, yeah, this is fantastic. And like, I maybe made like, hey, turn it this way or carve it out a little. Maybe made a couple tweaks, but it was all him. And then I do love Wu-Tang. I thought it was amazing last night. I don't think anybody else picked up on it. That when Chris Dickinson was announced, they announced him from Killa Hills 10304. I think. I think that's the code, but that's Staten Island.
Right.
And that's off the GZA's album, Liquid Swords.
Yeah.
So just. The things I love in life, of course, I love wrestling.
Right.
I love hip hop music. I do love all music, but hip hop especially. I love basketball. I just am such a big basketball fan. I enjoy it all. I love like comedic things, whether it's stand-up or funny movies or just people being funny. Like, I love that stuff. So anytime I can combine any of that stuff into what I do and share it with my fans, not only does it help introduce them to other stuff, it strengthens the connection that we have. Because I always have people to be like, hey, did you check out this album? Did you do this or whatever? And that's not just, hey, I think Chris Hero is a good wrestler, I'm going to cheer for him.
Right, and all of a sudden you can have a conversation with your fans about something besides wrestling.
Absolutely, and you know, I know people now in music, and I know some actors, and I know some writers, etc. So anytime I can share any of that with anybody else, I love being able to do that.
Well, it's amazing when you come across, like, you have no idea how many people are wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And, like, these people who are
you
like...
look at PWG last night, you're just like, okay, there's that guy from this.
Right.
Just, oh, okay, all right, and that's that guy's brother.
Right.
And
you're like, I don't know, Joe Manganiello was here a couple of times ago, so he might be here, I don't know.
You saw the one, the Modern Family chick, Sofia Vergara, that's how you say it. But they did this post-show angle where, like, everybody gets laid out, and then she just, like, leans up against the ring and takes a selfie of herself with, like, battered body in the background. And then she also posted a selfie, maybe not a selfie, maybe this one was a picture before the show posing by the ring, but the guys are in the ring, like, stretching and working it. You know what I mean? I'm in the ring getting ready to do, like, a roll. So it's just like a behind the scenes. It's just really funny. And it's like 900,000 likes on Instagram.
Of course.
Like,
of course. Yeah. You have more exposure than you've ever had because this one person decides it's selfie time.
And I'm bent over in gym shorts. I'm like, all right, there it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that also answers when you started or why you started matching gear to your basketball jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean...
So, it actually started in NXT. I got a set of gear for the Orlando Magic. And it was just an idea I had for a little while. My friend Dwayne from the UK helped me put some stuff together, and I had mock-ups for a lot of different outfits for Cassius that a couple got lost in the mail. I actually have photos of the outfits, so I know they were made. They just kind of got lost in the mail. So
somebody may have them.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, they may, because he sent them to my Tampa address when I lived in Orlando. So they just kind of lost. But so I had a couple of those, and then once I got back to the Indies, the last thing on my mind was getting new gear made, because I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna do as many shows as possible, and then eventually I'm just like, man, I want some new stuff, you know?
Right.
And my thing is, I have 60, 70 sets of wrestling gear.
Well, that's yeah.
Yeah, and that's stupid. I shouldn't have that many, but I like it. You know,
and fans like it, like,
yeah, for
you know,
sure.
when you're growing up, like, that was the best part of Shawn Michaels. He always had a different pair of tights on every show.
Yeah, I was moving some stuff into storage recently, and then I put all my gear up that I currently wear, not my Kings of Wrestling stuff, not my old baggy pants or whatever, which I've kept all of that stuff.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
Do you keep everything?
I keep it all.
Even like kind of the 90s rave gear?
Yeah. I mean, if they were not completely destroyed, I kept them.
Yeah.
You know, my old ring jackets, whatever. I got all that stuff in tubs. But I saw, like, all my trunks. I was like, God, I like have every color. Imagine I have pink trunks. I got purple trunks. Yeah. No, but and then I'm just like, all right, well, what can I get from? I get my stuff from a guy in Japan, and he makes my boots, he makes my trunks, whatever, and he just does such an excellent job with it. And he's reasonably priced, so every time I go over, I'm like, all right, I want this and this and this. So he actually, I've known him for years. But with the translation, we don't always have conversations. It's usually like, this, please, maybe, okay, you know?
Yeah.
So this time I sat and talked with him for a while about when he got into designing gear and whatever, and he was just a fan.
Right.
And he liked making masks, right? So he was just like a novice mask maker, and then he made a tiger mask, and he went to get it signed from Misawa, who was the second tiger mask. And Misawa signed it for him and was like, hey, these are pretty good. Like, have you ever thought about, you know, making some more? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll try it, you know?
Yeah.
So he started making tiger masks for Misawa. And then he was just like, Misawa was like, so how about boots? Make boots, make tights. And then my friend Oguri is his name. His mother was a seamstress. So she taught him some stuff. And then now he makes Okada, Tanahashi, whatever.
That's amazing.
All these guys. He's done Kawada, Kobashi, Misawa. All those guys. He's made stuff for all of them.
Doesn't it trip you out when you meet somebody that's got that kind of talent?
Yeah.
And like just doesn't realize that they can use it?
He's just a very unassuming guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, we send Facebook messages when we're trying to figure out what kind of stuff I want to order. And then, like, okay, cool, man. This guy, and he's like, oh, please. So I was asking him, I was like, you have old costumes? He's like, oh, many. So he, in his, he's got ring jackets, whatever. He's like, oh, next time, please come to my office.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Do you still geek out over like wrestling memorabilia
course,
and the
man.
old? Like...
I don't know if you ever look at my Instagram, but I think in a couple posts in like the last year and a half, when I get back from Japan, I'll throw all my stuff on a.
Oh yes, I see him on Facebook. Yeah,
and what I'll do is I won't just throw it. I'll like neatly organize it so I can fit everything into a picture. I was like, hey, this is what I got, and it'll be tons of obscure stuff and just I love all that. So I don't love everything. I'm very specific in what I do like.
But what don't you like?
Man, I'm not into old WWF stuff really. It's got to be like an obscure Andre the Giant thing or what. There's some I like the characters.
Is that because it was like mass produced in America?
Yeah, stuff that's easily, I like random things like for I like Zeus from No Holds Barred.
Sure, of course.
Like what a you know what I mean? What a crazy as a kid. I like Kamala. I like Abdul the Butcher.
Right.
I like Bruiser Brody. I like Muta. I like Kabuki. I like all those Missing Link, all those crazy characters. So anything I can find of that stuff that's not very common, I like getting it. Yeah. Or like for instance, I'm wearing a Takayama shirt right now, and he's badass.
Yeah, man. Well, you were talking about your gear when you left NXT, and you kind of sounded like I don't even know. I'm just gonna do as many shows as I can. So when when you leave NXT. Is your mindset just I'm gonna go on the Chris Hero's back tour and I don't even know what I'm gonna do after this? I don't know if
it's just like okay, let me look at my schedule. All right, this boom, 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 and it's not really any thought as far as 6 months. I want to do a year. I want to do no. It's just like all right, I want to work for these people. I need to respond to all these emails. I need to get this and just to figure out a schedule.
Were you thinking about leaving wrestling?
No, never.
No,
never.
You just didn't know exactly what you were going to do.
No, I just didn't know where or what, or if I was, because my lease was coming up in Orlando.
Right.
And I have no reason to leave Orlando.
Right.
My mom lives in Ohio, and she's going to come to Orlando before I go to Ohio.
Right.
No offense. Just, the climate's better. It's easy to travel in and out of. No, never. I'll always be involved in wrestling in some way.
Right. But I guess it's that trying to figure out, okay, this is like the third stage.
Yeah.
That a lot of, it's not really spelled out. It's like, it's steps. And then you get to this third stage where it's like, no, we're going back to the indies. And how do we do this in a way that's not a step backwards? It's actually, we're still moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. And the cool thing was, I've always felt like a bridge in the fact that I can understand and appreciate the more old school guys, and I can, morph to fit them. But then also the new young guys, I know I very much have that in me, like the Young Bucks, for instance.
Sure.
Like I can do that stuff too, but then I can also be in the ring with a Larry Zbyszko or whatever. That's a weird example. I have wrestled him one time, but for, you know what I mean? I feel I could blend in NXT with the new guys, the guys who have no wrestling experience at all, or I could be in the ring with a Seth Rollins or an Antonio Cesaro and bring that style back. Or so when it comes to the indies, it was just a matter of getting reacclimated to like one of my second match back, because you were at my first match back. I wrestled Hurricane.
Yes.
I don't think you were at Dragon Gate the next day, but
I was not.
Johnny Gargano, and making sure we got that match put together was like, I'm like, oh man, so much from what I was used to, and it's just kind of like can I still do that?
Right.
And then we had
because
the match,
it's
and
one
it was
thing.
like, of course I could still do that. Like you get those feelings every now and again because there's so many good wrestlers. There's so many, and it always challenges you to go, well, fuck, could I do that?
Right.
Could I? But then I feel like last year professionally for me was my best year overall as far as in-ring work, because I had such a variety of opponents, from Timothy Thatcher to Pentagon Jr. to Zack Sabre Jr. to guys that people weren't really familiar with, like Tommy End or Speedball or Trevor Lee, and then to go to Japan and then be in the ring with those guys, and it just, the way my year was spread out, I got to have so many fun different matches with people, and it's constantly challenging. I never get nervous, but I'm always just like, all right, what am I going to do this time? Like last night, for instance, with Roderick.
Yeah.
It's like he had such an incredible year last year.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And I've known him forever. He's another guy that's been in the ring over 15 years. So I'm like, what can I do in this match that will make people really think this is going to happen, or what, and make people really care. So that's why, looking at the card, the way the card was, that's why I chose to attack him right at the beginning, because what am I going to do? Sit in hammerlocks with him for 20 minutes?
Right.
And pull the people down?
Right.
You know, there's a time and a place to pull the crowd down, but like I figured serious business from the get-go, let's get going. And then that's why we involved the referees to just create a little bit more emotion, like, oh, what's going to happen?
Right.
Something.
And it was more like old school wrestling.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I've watched so much wrestling, and I've stockpiled so many different things in my head that I know what all the tells are. You can watch Raw, and you can go, okay, the referee's standing there because this is going to happen. Okay, the guy takes the corner. Okay, he's going to put his boot up. So I tried any tell that I can notice, I try not to do.
Right.
So, for instance, you think Rick Knox is being booted out of the match, so they're going to do something fishy with Justin.
Sure.
Right. So then it comes time, and he just sacrifices Justin anyway.
Right.
So here comes Rick Knox, and they're like, oh, Roddy's going to get his, you know, here it comes. And then Rick Knox is gone.
Right.
So then Justin comes back up, and then it's the slow kick
what's
out.
Gonna happen
right?
here? Yeah.
And then there's the belt shot, and you're like, oh, big kick out. So like I play off the patterns that are pre-established.
Right.
It's hard to do that if the patterns aren't established. So you have to know what your audience is into. And for instance, the match we had last night would not have played as well in a WWE setting or this setting. But at the same time, I wouldn't have had that same match there, because I would have played with the patterns there. Because it's like, it's a swerve in a movie. It's, ever since The Usual Suspects and Kaiser Soze and Verbal Kint, now we're like, oh, something. So now we've got swerve in the back of our head and whatever. And it's like each M. Night Shyamalan movie gets worse and worse and worse because you're waiting. You're like, I really want it to happen this time. And so with pro wrestling, it's the same thing. This happens, so this is going to happen. You know? I want to... obviously I want to have great matches and I want to do whatever, but I want to evolve pro wrestling. I want to push it forward. And for instance, you have a match, a guy does a sunset flip in the middle of the match. You think, oh, he's just going to kick out and the guy's going to clothesline him and go back. Right. Well, what if the match ends in the sunset flip? All right. So you have your, okay, it might disappoint some people, right? But you start to educate them that, a match can end at any time. Right. So
and long term, you're changing their expectations of everything.
And it can't, one match a show, it just ends randomly, you know? Boom, beginning of the match, 1, 2, 3, holy shit. Yeah. So it sucks in the short term because some people get disappointed. And if you have fans that, may just change the channel or go somewhere else, it's a risk. But I think in the long term, you just educate them to think that anything can happen at any time. And then that's when there's the most drama, when you're just like, God damn it, I don't know what's going to happen. Right. And then, so we're all smart as wrestling fans, right? So we go, I knew that was going to happen. So then when the first time, this is going to be it, and it's not, you sit up out of your seat a little bit and you go, okay, it's going to be the next one, right? I'm sure. And then that's why these matches are getting so
And for wrestling fans, there's no in between. It's like, I know what's going to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, you go, whoa, and then you're standing up in your seat, and then you're ready for it.
So I feel like 2008 when I got the green light to start going with the elbow stuff, and that was my version of, hey, a match can end at any time. Yes, I can hit you with an elbow here, or if this this one doesn't work or that one doesn't work, or I'll kick you in the face or whatever. So that was my slow education, and now because of that, I can do a lot of different things, and people are like, oh, this could be it. And that's what I love. I love being able to just manipulate in that fashion.
You're a bigger guy than you have been. Now.
Yes.
Did you do this intentionally? Like, because now when I watch you wrestle, it reminds me very much of like one of the older school strong style Japanese guys, like the guy, you know, like the guys that you look up to,
for sure,
because you're still moving like you always moved. You're hitting harder than you've ever hit before, and like you said, you're doing the best matches of your career.
You know, I like how you worded that too. Very, very kind.
Well, I'm not. Yeah,
it's a bigger guy. No, but it's a combination of like, I had a couple different bouts with lower back spasms that were pretty rough. Not rough seriously, but just pretty rough pain and hard to travel in and stuff. So that kind of set me back for a little bit, and I was trying to manage that. And like I feel so much better now. Just you have to maintain just the different musculature of your body just to make sure.
What were the back spasms from?
Just one was playing basketball.
Man.
And it wasn't a thing that happened. It was after walking to my car, and I'm like, oh man, I got like a kink here, whatever. And then the next day, you know, and then for the next 7 days, you can't move, or you can stand up at like a 90-degree angle for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's muscle. You just kind of have to let it chill out. And anytime I've hurt my back like that, it's been on something silly. WrestleMania weekend in Phoenix years ago, I rolled out of the ring and I misjudged because it was a different ring, so it was maybe about 2 inches taller.
Yeah.
So my body expected to land 2 inches sooner, so that when I landed, it was a jolt, and I was like, oh my god. And then the next day, excruciating pain. Oh. One time I was in a three-way with Seth Rollins and Damian Sandow, and I got thrown out of the ring, and I just landed kind of funny. And these aren't serious. These aren't like ER injuries. These are just like, I need to be flat for like 5 to 6 days.
Yeah,
you know, and just hydrate and whatnot. So anyway, so the different back injuries over the past couple years, and then also getting some blood work done and trying to balance some stuff out with my thyroid. I still don't really know a whole lot about it. I'm working to get better at it, and then also it's the knowledge in my head that like, as long as I feel good, as long as I'm tearing it up in the ring, I'm not as concerned. It's not that I'm not concerned at all. Like, I want to look good, I want to feel good, but I would rather feel good as opposed to focusing more on looking good. Does that make sense?
It does.
And I mean, I'm always going to have detractors. I'm always have people that I'm just not their cup of tea, but that's what's great about this. It's perspective.
Yeah.
Go to a different YouTube video.
Right.
You know, go to a different show, or go get a drink during intermission, whatever.
And YouTube video is right, because the people who are at the shows, it never comes up.
For sure.
Like it's like, as long as you're still, like I said.
And because it's so much easier when it's in two dimensions. When I'm for my size, and like I talked about my lucha training for 3 years, I just learned a couple techniques that I, can move myself around. And when I was even bigger, when I was like almost 300 in like the early 2000s, that's when I started working on stuff, and I could do that stuff then. So when all the weight came off, I was just like, oh yeah, no problem.
Wow.
Kip up, flip, do this, da. So seeing me do my stuff in person, whether it's my strikes or whether it's how I kind of maneuver my body in and out of the ring, I think it shuts some people up.
Yeah.
Or it just, it's not as big of a deal. I never remember watching a Stan Hansen match and going like, man, look at his belly.
Right.
He's too busy fucking knocking someone's teeth out.
Right. Which is, which is why you've gotten so good at hitting people hard.
Just long story short, not to say that it's not a concern of mine. I want to take care of my body. I want to feel better, and I just want to keep having kick-ass matches.
Yeah, and that's what's going on. So did you? You're talking about 3 years of training in lucha. Jess is having a just cough. Get
it out.
Just get it out of you.
I did like that Mission Impossible style.
Yeah, she was trying to duck below the cameras, but at the same time, I couldn't tell if she was having a heart attack.
We can always just switch to that camera. That's good, sweetheart.
You were talking about training lucha, and now you're getting reminded that you need water too, because you're watching Jess have a coughing fit. Hydration is key. Is this something where throughout your career you've always like wanted to pick up on new styles and just keep learning?
Absolutely. So I didn't get to explain, but when I got into wrestling in the summer of '98, when I started training and started having matches, I wasn't super smart to wrestling as far as knowing what was out there. I was just like, oh, Goldberg's hot in WCW, and then here's the Attitude Era, or whatever. All this stuff was going on. And then it wasn't until I started being around more people that were in wrestling, and then like, oh, Dynamite Kid had some stuff in Japan. Wow, I thought he was just the tag, Davey Boy's partner.
Right.
I always wondered what happened to him, and then you start watching him in Tiger Mask, and then you start watching. I was a big fan of. I liked Muda. I liked Muda a whole lot, and then Liger came in. I thought Liger was cool, and then Ultimo was in WCW. So those different guys, I sought out their Japanese work just to see what kind, what they were all about, and then that opened up a whole new world for me. So once that happened, I'm just like, I need to learn how to do this, or I want to do this, or I want to, etc. Another one was finding my first glimpse of British wrestling. And, of course, I had seen William Regal and Fit Finlay, Dave Taylor. I'd seen those guys in WCW. But when I got my first, I saw my first Johnny Saint match, it blew my mind. It blew my mind to the point that we used to order video cassettes in England in PAL format, PAL format, and we would pay to have them transferred to NTSC. So we would watch these grainy third generation British comps of Johnny Kidd and Zoltan Boschik and Jim Breaks, and just this British style. So things fell into place, and Dave Taylor still had a ring from WCW at a training camp down in Atlanta. Myself, CM Punk, Ace Steel, we all went down to Atlanta, Georgia, and we spent a week with Taylor, Finlay, and Regal. And then we learned authentic, hey, this is how you put the hold on. This, because you can watch something on film and you can try to mimic it, but to actually put it on, to know which way to hold the joint, which way to whatever, to spin around.
And you could tell the difference, like last night at the PWG show watching...
Zach?
Zach is definitely, but Thatcher and Gulak.
Oh, for sure.
Like they're like, no, they're grappling. Like they are really wrestling. There's no sort of...
Yeah, like on his off days, Timothy Thatcher's up in Toronto training at the Battle Arts gym with Shinya Ishikawa. So, yeah. So once I started recognizing this, I'm like, I gotta learn this. So I had basically shoddy training for my first 9 months in wrestling, 6 months, whatever. Then I ended up at Les Thatcher's school, where I met like Nigel McGuinness, BJ Whitmer, those guys. Yeah. Then from there, I ended up I did a couple camps with Dory Funk Jr. in Florida. I did 2 of his camps. So I learned a little bit from him. Then I did training the British camps with Taylor, Finlay, and Regal. Then a couple years later, I ended up learning the lucha. And I trained both in the States and in Mexico. So I did that. And then I also was going over to Europe a lot more regularly. So I was spending time over there. And then also in 2009, I got to stay in the Pro Wrestling Noah Dojo. So I was able to just kind of like... let me pick up a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Yeah. And then that's what I present to the fans is like, okay, I got this from this. I got this from this, etc. So anybody that's kind of like a wrestling nerd like that, or like, oh, he's doing that move because he picked that up from this, and oh, this style is a thing that, oh, he took this move, but then he changed it to make it his own, etc. So I've added all that stuff in there, and that's why I've done so well over the years with training seminars, because I can pass down a lot of secondhand knowledge that I've picked up in these different places. Totally.
Yeah. How do you feel now that we're long enough removed from being in NXT? How do you feel not being there? Do you feel like it was, whatever universe, based on the universe, the right move for you? Or do you look at like, Claudio and Seth Rollins and be like, that's where I should be? Or because there's 2 schools of thought. You look at it and go like, those are my friends, that's where I should be. Or you look at the year you just had and say, no. This is where I was supposed to be.
I try not to think along the lines of, I try not to spend too much time on woulda, shoulda, coulda, or what if, because I had almost 2 years in FCW and NXT, and I came away from there such a better wrestler with so many more anecdotes and just different little things that I can pull up and go, yeah, this makes sense because of this. Because I always say this in my seminars. I always say that there comes a point every year when I'm like, all right, I got it. I understand it. I figured it out. Sure. And then just as soon as that happens, I go, oh, I guess I need to figure this out a little bit more, or I opened my mind to this or whatever. Like I remember watching Wrestle Kingdom last year with Nakamura and Ibushi.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those matches that's like, God.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that match all the time.
Could I have that match?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
or could I do my stuff with that much drama and emotion,
right?
And Christmas and whatever.
That's universe. That's like you're doing. This is a Japanese match with Japanese guys, and like as an American fan, you're just sitting there like just captivated by it.
Yeah. So I'm very thankful for the time that I had there and the little blurbs of knowledge from a Ricky Steamboat or a Dusty Rhodes or a Perry Saturn or a Christian or Lance Storm or whatever little stuff we picked up from the different people passing through, or Big Show even, would come in and drop some knowledge. But I'm happy. I'm so happy to see my friends succeed. Man, when Claudio threw Big Show out of that battle royal, I mean, I lost my mind. Yeah. And then for Brian to go on and take it home that night is just like the perfect. It's like, it's just, how could you not be completely ecstatic for all that?
Yeah.
And of course there are, there's bumps in the road. There's, injuries for both of them right now.
But that same night is the night that the Shield wins their match too. So you got Rollins over here and it's like, these are the guys.
Yeah.
These are the guys.
But I'm also just like, I wouldn't really say fate, but like, things happen.
Yeah.
Things will happen the way they're supposed to, and then if they don't, you just have to figure out where to go from there.
Right.
So I'm very much thankful for the year that I just had and the matches and the travel and not just that, like now that before I went to NXT, sometimes you'd kind of have to haggle a little bit as far as getting paid a certain amount for a show, or you wouldn't be able to get a certain flight because of this, or you just need to go and come back because you can't spend extra money.
Yeah.
Well, now it's a little bit easier for me, whereas I can just kind of pick my shots a little bit more and like for instance, I'm in LA right now.
Right.
It's like, well, I got this show in LA. But why? I'm not doing anything for New Year's, so let me fly out for New Year's Eve and then stay a couple days.
Yeah,
I thought about maybe going to a basketball game, maybe doing whatever. But now I have a bunch of friends in a bunch of different areas, so I can bookend my trip with so I'm not like get up at 4 a.m.
Right,
fly at 7, get there, wrestle on no sleep. Don't sleep that night because you don't want to miss your alarm, and then back at the airport at 5 a.m.
Right.
In and out. And sometimes you do that and it's good, but I also like being able to just hang out and see friends and experience things. And it's such a better place to be able to do that now.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. Things are going well. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about wrestling.
And I like that we didn't really have a direction here.
No.
But I think that's open-ended. We can always, we can rap on any kind of topic. So
yeah. You got to come back and do another podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
Definitely. Well, Chris Hero, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And I'll talk to you again.
Hey, it's Sam Roberts. I hope you enjoyed that wrestling interview from Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. You can go to notsam.com to subscribe to that podcast. But I upload videos like that on this YouTube channel all the time. So if you don't already subscribe now. It's on the side of the page. I made it real easy. Click the button. Subscribe to the page. Subscribe to the page.